Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to this video. This video is about these three things right here. Three 1080p monitors arranged in a triple monitor setup. Now, the monitor world is really exciting at the moment. We've got new monitors coming out every single month from all the different manufacturers using things like FreeSync, G-Sync, 4K, Cinema 4K, curved screens, ultra-wide screens. But all of these things have one thing in common: they're all quite expensive. So there is actually another option. Why not get three cheaper monitors and then use them in a triple monitor setup? That way we're going to get loads of pixels, but we're also going to save a lot of money. So is that a sensible option, and should you be doing it? The first thing we should do is look at the mathematics. One large 40-inch IPS or VA monitor will cost you around about £600. You can get some for a little bit less, and you can get some for significantly more, depending on how much of a high quality monitor you want to go for. Now, you also get about 8 million pixels in a UHD monitor. If you go for a 1440p monitor and you go for a 144Hz one, you're looking at around about £500 and up. If you're looking at an ultra-wide 1440p monitor, again you're looking at about £500 and up. This is if we are looking at an IPS or a VA setup. Now, that setup has about just under 5 million pixels. But if we go for three 1080p monitors arranged in a triple monitor setup, it's only going to cost us around £425 because each monitor is available for about £140. In terms of pixels, that is just over 6 million pixels. So we're getting more pixels for our money, and it's also costing us less. But of course, just because we've got these pixels doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be using them in their best way. So let's move on to the actual setup of three screens. Now, the thing that's a pain in the arse is the fact that you have to have three lots of connections, and so that's 6 cables, whereas if you just had one monitor, that's just 2. So you're probably going to have a display port and a power cable. With this setup, I'm using 3 display ports and 3 power cables. That's definitely something you're going to want to consider. Also consider the fact that this takes up a huge amount of space, and if you opt for a larger 27-inch versions, it's going to really dwarf your desk. This is, I would say, a medium-sized desk, and it is completely destroyed by the amount of monitors that I've got on the desk. So if you have a small space, bear in mind, it's probably going to be a cause for concern. A single monitor is also going to look quite a lot cleaner. Granted, I think these ones do look very good because they have quite a thin bezel. But here's the thing. If you want one large monitor, you're going to be using all those pixels sort of in the best way because stuff becomes a lot sharper. Whereas if we have three 1080p screens, stuff isn't necessarily sharper, there's just more of it. So this is either an advantage to you if you are doing something like web design, where you've got 3 separate screens that you can be working on, but if you're just using an internet browser, you're not going to necessarily get the full benefit of using all those pixels. If you are going for 3 cheaper monitors, then you're probably going to have to put up with a monitor stand that isn't necessarily as good as you would like. The ones I'm using here, the monitors I'm using here, you can find in the description below, but they are 3 AOC monitors, and the stands they have aren't really that great. They don't have any height adjust, and they're not very easy to get nicely aligned with each other. And this is not just something of this AOC monitor, this is going to happen at pretty much all budget monitors. So if you're really serious about having a triple monitor setup, I would definitely recommend you get a triple monitor stand, and then you can set them up a lot cleaner. You'll notice there are quite a few gaps between the monitors at the top, and to be honest, this doesn't really cause too much of a problem, but a monitor stand would definitely erase this as an issue. Once you've got these 3 monitors on your desk though, you're going to want to set them up and make sure that the picture settings are the same. This particular monitor, it was pretty easy. I just left them on the sRGB preset, and of course I could do that with each one. But it's definitely worth putting in the time to make sure the image quality sort of matches on each monitor. That way you're going to have a nice consistent experience. Setting them up in triple monitor mode, you either need to go into your AMD Catalyst control panel or the NVIDIA control panel, and then you need to enable surround or iFinity depending on the platform you're using. If you do enable surround, if you're using an NVIDIA card like I am, then note that this will turn this into one large screen rather than 3 small screens. And for productivity, this isn't really that good because it means that instead of having multiple monitors, your programs don't necessarily utilize all your space properly, and you lose some keyboard shortcuts. I'm a big fan of Windows Shift and then the arrow keys, and then that moves a window from one monitor to another. You can't do that if you've got surround enabled, and you need to have it as 3 separate displays. If you're using this for gaming though, of course you are going to need to enable that. Then you've just got one large screen effectively. And as soon as you go into games, you can then utilize this resolution, and as long as it's supported properly, that's when your gaming experience is going to start. And I have to say, it took me quite a while to get used to, because here's the most common misconception I think about having a triple monitor setup. In the majority of games, the left and right screens are literally just going to be as an immersion aid. You're not really going to directly look at them. You're going to notice that things are distorted because it's essentially about having your field of view filled with the game. You might think that you can play Battlefield 4 and then look at your left screen and then see if there's anyone there, but that's not really the case because, like I say, it's quite distorted. What it's all about is having a nice immersive gaming experience, and it really did work as long as you can keep a consistent 60 frames a second. In Titanfall, I couldn't really do this without lowering down some settings, and if you want to, say, try and play this at 30 frames a second, I booted up Batman, and while the experience was still good, because you've effectively got 3 screens filling up your whole field of view, your whole field of view is in 30 frames a second, and if anything, that did start to make me feel a little bit motion sick, which isn't really what I want. But I have to say, I didn't really get this when playing other games. Racing games were by far the best genre of games to be playing on a triple monitor setup. Really, the immersion was there. I think it was easier to race, and of course racing games are easier to actually play at a capped 60 frames a second, and the experience on Grid 2 really was pretty fantastic. But I really did enjoy playing Battlefield 4 on this monitor as well. Like I say, Titanfall was pretty cool as well. But if you want to play maybe a slightly different game, then note that you need good support, because you might notice that things don't work properly in this resolution if there isn't support out of the box, and things will be in the wrong places. Some games will kind of work but won't work as well as you'd like. So for example, Civilization 5, I know you have the UI, half the UI on the left hand screen, half on the right. So it means if you want to go from the left to the right, you've got to scroll across 3 monitors to get there. But then some games just won't really play very nicely at all, and they won't be a good option for you to use this setup with. But when you get a good game with good support, it really can be very immersive, and I had a very good time using these 3 monitors. So then that kind of brings me on to the conclusion then of this entire video. Is having 3 screens in a triple monitor setup worth it? Well, I'm afraid it's not a straight cut yes or no, because it's going to depend on your use case scenario. If you're someone that really just wants to be playing racing games, then I would definitely say this is the best way to be playing them. If you play a whole range of games, then it still might be worth doing, especially if you're playing the more AAA titles that will have good support. But if you're someone that doesn't really game that much, unless you want the advantage of having 3 separate screens, that's when it's kind of up to you really. When it works really well, and if you are a web developer, really I can't stress enough how cool it was to have 3 screens, because you could have a live version of your website on one screen, the old version on the middle screen, and then your code on the right. It was fantastic. But then again, if you want 3 screens, you've got to have the room for 3 screens, you've got to have the horsepower to run 3 screens if you do want to be doing gaming. Even on a GTX 980, it was really tough to run some of these games at 60 frames a second without lowering the settings down. And that kind of is just my overall feeling of it really. I think it's definitely the coolest way to play your games, but it's not necessarily the most practical, and if it's not going to work in every game, you are trading something off for this. But that's my opinions. What do you think? Do you have a triple monitor setup? Have you used one? Do you like them? Let me know, leave a comment below. If you liked this video, then obviously give it a like, and if you didn't, then don't. I really want to say a massive thank you to AOC for getting these monitors out here, especially for this video. It's fantastic to obviously be able to do videos like this, and this literally wouldn't have been possible without AOC, so thank you so much for that. If you want to see a separate review of this particular monitor, that's coming very soon, and if you want to see a behind the scenes video to show how this video was all made, that is also coming very soon. If it's available, you should be able to click the little I and then it will show you that it's available. So thank you so much for checking out this video. Like I say, thanks again to AOC for making this possible, and I will see you in the next video.